Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Port City Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Operation Sovereign Shield. If you're listening to this audio only, make sure to check out our Patreon for the full version, or you can find the abbreviated version on our YouTube. All right, so we're talking about Operation Sovereign Shield today.
That's right. Before we get started, I just want to make a quick announcement to you guys. For those of you watching on YouTube, the Port City Podcast is back, as you can see, and it will be business as usual. We will be bringing you these 15 to 20-minute episodes. However, we are going to be moving to a bi-weekly uploading schedule versus a weekly uploading schedule. We are also expanding the Port City Podcast, making it into an hour-long, more of like a show. We're going to have different segments and different bits. YouTube will continue to get these 15 to 20-minute episodes, which is kind of the core part of our podcast. You can check out the expanded audio-only version anywhere you can find podcasts for the most part, all the major podcast platforms. And if you would like to check out the full video experience, you can check out our Patreon. We will have all of that stuff linked down in the description, but let's get into it.
Yeah, so we're back with the podcast, and we were gone for just a few months, like I think 2 months-ish. Not very long at all.
Maybe 3.
Could be 3.
At this point, it might be 3 or 4.
So things look different. The structure's different. But why did we do that? Why did we stop doing the podcast in the first place? Well, if you saw our video,
I'm dying to know.
We were hosting an event, Operation Sovereign Shield, and that was May 24th of 2024, the year that we currently are in.
The year of our Lord.
Unless you're watching this next year, then it'll be last year.
Yeah,
that's how time works. It really does.
It really does. But yeah, Operation Sovereign Shield was a huge success.
Mm-hmm. Massive success. What was it? Or why?
Well, yeah, we had a lot of people Hey, first of all, thank you guys so much for all the kind words. We received a ton of DMs, comments, posts. I actually did cry at one point.
You did.
Asking us why we're stopping the podcast, when we're bringing it back. I don't think I quite realized how many of our viewers are regular listeners who actually like enjoy
hearing us talk.
It's mind-blowing to me because for us, like, we're doing it to raise awareness about Airsoft, about the community here in Savannah, and it was just really heartwarming to see all the kind words. So thank you to everyone who reached out, and we're so happy to be back. And as you can see, the set's different. A real better podcast, dude.
I hope so.
We got better mic arms.
This is the first one, so we'll have to see on the next one.
There will be a lot of changes over the next few months, but we are working to improve. We're moving to that bi-weekly to give us more time for editing and setup and filming and not feeling too rushed.
You a better product.
But yeah, so why we took a break was for Operation Sovereign Shield. Well, why did we do Operation Sovereign Shield? We wanted to make Airsoft more accessible to people in our region. A lot of people here travel for Airsoft events, and it is like minimum 4 hours to anything.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's that much
and
closer.
Most of the time, it's way above that. We've driven 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours to different stuff, and we wanted to bring some stuff closer to home for our community. And we wanted to show a lot of the new players because there's a lot of young airsofters, whether that be young in age, right? Young people getting into the hobby, or like people who have never experienced airsoft getting into it for the first time. And we wanted to give them an experience comparable to that of a lot of larger events around the states, around the world, really. And make it affordable and accessible and just so incredibly fun. So we poured a lot of time into that, and so we had to take a break from the podcast to do that. But it was a really big success. Why don't you tell why don't you tell us a little bit about what exactly went down at
Yeah.
Operation Sovereign Shield?
So it was kind of an effort to bridge that like milsim with the weekend, kind of an elevated weekend play thing. So we did have it was multiple game modes that went on. A lot of milsim events are like long form matches or sessions or whatever you want to call it, games. And we did have some of that, but a lot of the game modes were kind of like 20 to 30 minutes just bursts, and that ended up working really well with the heat that was going on. We had a lot of people that were
hot,
and it was dude. And so having that, I think those shorter game modes helped a lot with the heat and everything, but then also it gave people who had not experienced airsoft in our area, and also people, whether that be from out of town or this was their first time playing or something like that, it gave people a good idea of, hey, this is what you can expect if you come here on a Saturday. And then it also gave them a taste of like, this is the other side of airsoft, right? Like if you're obviously speed soft, but then, weekend games as compared to airsoft events.
It was a good balance of all things airsoft. It is what, that's not us just saying that. Like we sent out a survey afterwards, and a lot of the things that we're saying that we tried to do, that we went out with that in mind, were executed fairly well.
Yeah,
the feedback was really good.
It was really awesome,
and it was a very good
too.
experience for us, but also for the community here.
Yeah. We had two teams. We had obviously some lore behind it. The lore being two warring factions, the Tarnagal Federation, which is a very like NATO-esque kind of group of countries, versus the Republic of Sundar, which is just a very small standalone nation, kind of tucked up into a corner on a coast. Obviously a fictional setting, but
hence the Port City Airsoft.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, we had the two teams, Sundar and the Tarnagal Federation.
You're not going to be able to see them because
we've got their patches up there.
Field here, but we do have the patches.
Very good, very good looking patches.
Yeah,
I haven't seen very many.
Not to brag, but we kind of killed.
I haven't seen many better patches.
They really do look so good.
They do look good. I'm just gonna toot our horns for a second. Yeah. Oh, pause.
Here, I got us. Hold on.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I hope that come through.
Got the horn on the RPK.
So with the lore that we had built, and then also the game modes and the structure of the day we had planned, we had that. We did have a bit of a like evolving storyline that went with the day. Hopefully that will branch into other events. We're planning more for the future. Hopefully more this year. Stay tuned.
We'll tuned
be
for
talking
updates.
about that more. And again, like every one of these events that we do, we are taking the feedback that we're getting, and we're applying it. It's our heart behind these events is very much so. If our community doesn't like what we're doing, there's no reason for us to do it.
Yeah, literally. I had some people be like, "Well, I mean, have you like thought about like what if people don't like this?" And before the event, I was like, "I'm telling you right now, we have done nothing but ask questions to the people here." And it was even one of the guys we asked to be a CO for the team was excited, right? He was excited. Oh, like there's going to be an event. Some like the guys that I know are hosting it here at our home field. He told us in a meeting that when he looked at the document folder we sent him with not even everything, literally just the
stuff for our commanding
officers he needs to know as a CO. We sent that over to him. I want to say it was like 5 different files.
There was like 4 or 5 documents in there. Yeah.
And he was like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, these guys have put so much work into it. And
that was I think he said, if I'm not mistaken, he said, I have to get my stuff together.
Yeah.
This is legit. I have to get my stuff together.
Yeah. I'm really not trying to brag about like what we did.
A little bit trying to brag.
I'm not trying to brag about what we did as much as like that it worked, right? It's not necessarily that we feel good that we are like whatever. We feel good that we brought something to our community, to you guys, right? Obviously, if you're watching online and you're not in the area, we'd love to have you out to play sometime.
And we're taking we got a ton of footage and clips from just us, and then also other content creators that were on the field playing.
You can go to YouTube right now and search Operation Sovereign Shield and find gameplay from multiple different content creators, as well as
some additional content.
A buddy of ours from the field, his YouTube is Retinov DMR, and we'll link that down in the description here on YouTube. He has gone and made a mini series doing flight sim, like dog fighting,
DCS,
built around the lore for this universe, and has modeled like
Tarnagle Federation and Sundar like
fighter jets,
and stuff, dude.
It's so cool. So definitely go check that out.
Yeah,
we'll link that down below. But that was the rewarding part for us, to see people excited.
We're hoping with all of these events that we're getting just as much footage as possible to be able to if you can't be present at the event, you can experience it, however vicariously. And there's other things that we have in the works.
We've got
as
some
far
cool
as that goes,
but up.
So stay tuned. Literally stay tuned for all of that, because there's so much that we have planned.
We did not stop the podcast to dilly dally.
No, we
actually probably worked even harder
Yeah.
during that time than we have previously.
We would not have stopped the podcast if we didn't realize that it was struggling in, we were not able to dedicate as much time as it needed.
Yeah.
And
like we could physically not.
It really was just a matter of, okay, we can, halfway do both of these things, or we can dedicate our time to one of these, make it excellent, and then afterwards dedicate that same time to this thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we ended up doing.
And
again,
it was
hopefully
worth it. We put a lot of effort into the game modes, the objectives. We had some cool props. We did. I'm just gonna take a minute, unless there's something else.
No, you're good.
Just to talk about the actual what happened on the field. We had one of the big things that we got a lot of feedback about was something special we tried to do, and this was actually, you were the one who was in there working on the different branching, arcing storylines.
So each game mode had, depending on which team won, had a different outcome.
Yes.
There was a different game mode that came after that,
somewhat
depending
similar
on
to
the
like
team
a
that came
Telltale
before.
video game, but you're in it. And so, for example, the first game was an attack and defend. A little bit more involved in that. It was more of an invasion force. So there was a lot of unknown, where are they coming from? Where should we, whatever. We gave the Tarnagle team, the blue team, a flag to defend inside of a compound. And we were your only job is to make sure this flag stands.
Shout out to our greatest sponsor's sister.
For making those. Benny S's sister.
Miss Benny S.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that would,
Because they're not married.
Not Miss, right. Yeah. Miss Benny S for making those flags. We had a bunch of different flags made. You can kind of see them in the edge of frame. There's a bunch of PVC pipes
over there behind me. It's not for beating Isaac when he's
getting
getting out of hand.
But anyway, so we went from that into, depending on who won, we had two different game modes planned for that. Depending on that next game mode, we had two different ones. So it branches out, and
even more so than just the game modes, the storyline, because at the end of the day, it's an invasion.
We sat down and planned all of the different outcomes.
Oh yeah,
and made announcements during the thing. Here's the thing, and then we even had pre-recorded stuff ready to go that we dropped footage into that next weekend and posted news articles and stuff. You can check that out on our YouTube shorts and on Instagram and Facebook. But we had those flags made. We did some bomb defusal stuff.
Yep.
We had some intel retrieval stuff. It was really cool. And there was we'll put some of this stuff up on the screen here, but I got some really cool shots of the first game when they launched that invasion force.
They were just pushing out of that tree line.
Pushing out of this tree line, right? You can't really tell what's going on from the castle side of things. And I just remember being there and hearing the most amount of BBs I've ever in my life heard hitting a wall.
There has never been, I don't think, that many people out playing Airsoft at Hoppers at one time.
We had double what our normal attendance would be.
We overshot our
estimated goal.
We overshot our moonshot goal.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
But
great turnout.
They were red team was like sweeping around to the left through the woods, trying to come up behind the castle. And I got this one really cool shot of a smoke going off and just like completely filling the air.
Nice.
And red team's moving up. There's like blue team guys are back in the castle trying to like keep them from crossing that open threshold, but they're just getting suppressed. And then eventually I'm like, man, like red's not crossing this field. Right when I said that, I was like, they may not make it out of that wood line. I hear someone yell breach. And I come around the side, and they have circled around the opposite direction, all the way around, pushed up through the town, like CQB.
They did
through a city, basically up to the fort.
And it's so funny too, because when we were planning all of this stuff out, like we were literally sitting down looking at an overhead map of the field, our home field.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, well, we're gonna have them spawn here, and we're gonna have these guys spawn here. What are some of the things? What are the moves that these guys could make to win this? And that right there, them sweeping around and coming up through the town was absolutely something that we thought could happen. So we made sure to have blue team like, hey, you guys spawn in the town too, because they'll probably come up that way. Yeah,
it was close. Sundar wound up winning. Technically by a landslide points wise.
Yeah,
I would like to point out that Tarnagle held every single game it down to the last minute.
It was not an easy fight for Sundar at all.
Sundar came out on top with a lot of points because they won every round, but they won every round
marginally,
barely.
Yeah.
So and they had a lot of experienced players, a lot of milsim players, guys who are used to this type of gameplay.
And that was something that was another piece of feedback that we got that we're taking to heart, was just balancing the teams. Figuring out how registration for that should work and whatnot. Because we were kind of doing that manually, like looking at the people that had registered and moving them into teams accordingly.
Yep.
So that's a piece of feedback that we got afterwards that we're gonna make better for the next one. So
we got overall really good feedback from that survey we sent out, and a lot of positive reviews.
Yeah,
and excuse me.
A lot of really good constructive criticism.
The people who did have concerns still did not rank different aspects very low, but the ones that were like a little lower, they were like, hey, I had a great time. Here's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
And we've already reviewed all that.
Yeah.
We sat down and put together like pie charts and like scatter plot graphs and like all this different stuff to like find the general perception of different aspects. Find different aspects about the event and like to see kind of where we did well, where we didn't do well, and then we made some bulleted notes about what was some consistent feedback. So we're already planning. We're already planning more events. So definitely stay tuned, because we will be announcing those. We don't know when yet. There's a lot more going, not a lot more effort, but a lot more resources and variables at play for this
effort.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
effort in the sense of there's a lot of groundwork that we've done ahead of time that we can lean on, but there's a lot that we're going to.
We're not putting less effort into this, but it's not like we didn't put effort into the last one. Right. There's just a lot more.
There's more
on the table.
Refining, and anything that gets added is
one of the
kind of just bonus on top of what we already had.
I don't want to like spend a bunch of time talking about what went wrong, but I do want to acknowledge a handful of things, just because a lot of the people who were at the event do watch, and I want to kind of publicly announce, like we said, we saw the feedback, team balancing. We know that the teams were a little bit off balance. I know it felt like it was super lopsided, but I'm telling you guys, especially on the blue team, you guys fought really, really hard and really well.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard nothing but, man, they like made us work for it. I was sweating. I didn't know if
And-
we'd pull through. And
Right.
and those are experienced
And
milsim players.
that was
People who have more experience at
Yeah.
milsims than we do.
something
and,
that was
and you guys gave them a run for their money.
super crucial that like I don't think blue team really recognized was like red team was just as gassed.
Yeah.
Just as gassed.
Just
but
as wore out.
it was that aspect of they do this a lot. Like there's
Yeah.
like Milsim West and all the other stuff where it's
Yeah.
like we're
And
outside
a lot of
for
those
40
guys
hours.
are regulars at TCA.
Right.
So
So it's conditioning at that
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
So,
So-
it's not something that like again they barely got these
Yeah.
objectives.
But
it was so close.
the teams were a little off balance. We already have a plan on how to fix that. We're going to be working with the COs as well as bringing in a couple of squad leads that are officially designated like by us and are part of like staff for the event to help balance the leadership and experience of leadership across both teams and have designated people. And then we will be sending, when we send out the announcements for the event, we will let you guys know what it's going to look like. Registration might look a little bit different, but we are implementing things to make sure that our teams are more balanced and that we have a good spread of milsim players, new players, speedsoft players, because that was one thing. We did have some speedsoft players, not a lot. I get if you're a speedsoft player, this may not be your favorite type of gameplay.
But
the
we have-
speedsoft players who were there told me they had an amazing time.
Mhm.
That was one thing I was worried about is we don't know a lot about it. So we wanted to make sure that it was something they could do. And they told us it did feel like a good balance of like, it is a milsim event, but it's not like, it's not like you can't run and slide into a room and you know what I mean? Like,
No, there was a lot of that.
So, and then obviously the heat, we can't really do anything about that, like unless we just don't host stuff in the summer, but we are,
Or if we have something inside, but even then
we are planning stuff for when there's some colder weather. So that's coming up soon. So it's a lot closer than people realize.
Yeah. Best way to make sure you're staying up to date on all that stuff is by subscribing to this here YouTube or podcast, because we will always be giving updates. I mean, as we're planning this stuff, we'll be talking about it on this podcast. So stay tuned. If you want to stay tuned, subscribe.
And like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you want to watch the full video podcast, you can check out our Patreon.
You're going to want to.
If you can't, afford to do a Patreon subscription, we are posting the audio only version of the full podcast wherever you can get podcasts, most of the major podcast providers. So we will make that accessible to you. We really appreciate you guys watching today. If you are listening on Spotify or watching on Patreon, we're going to continue on with the show. But for those of you on YouTube, we're going to wrap it up here. We will be announcing stuff fairly soon, so keep an eye out for it. And we really appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you guys very much.
And we're super excited for this next one.
Yeah.
You want to get out of here?
Yeah, let's leave.
Okay.